हम लेज़ली हेज़ल्टन की द फर्स्ट मुस्लिम, इसको समझने की हमारी कोशिश चल रही है कि क्या कहना चाह रही है, और इसमें हम पार्ट 1 चैप्टर 2 जो है उसको समझ रहे हैं। पेज नंबर 15 का सेकंड पैराग्राफ। तो ये समझेंगे। हम बात कर रहे हैं why there was a possibility that the prophet wasn't conceived at all। तो लेज़ली हेज़ल्टन ने कहा कि if the legends are to be believed then he wasn't conceived at all। तो उसको समझने के लिए हमने समझा कि कैसे जमजम का जो कुआं था उसको रीडिस्कवर करने के सिलसिले में क्या क्या हालात नए आ गए, और कैसे अब्दुल मुतल्लिब इन्होंने एक कसम खाई, टुक अ वाव, कि इफ़ 10 of my sons survive till they are adults I would sacrifice one of them। तो इंडीड वो 10 के 10 सर्वाइव किए, एंड देन केम द टाइम, और फिर हमने देखा कि कैसे उन्होंने डिसाइड किया विच वन टू सैक्रिफाइस। उसके लिए जो टोटेमिक आइकन था उनका हुबल, तो उसको इस्तेमाल किया इन्होंने, और वहाँ से आंसर आया अब्दुल्ला। टर्न्स आउट अब्दुल्ला इज़ द यंगेस्ट एंड द मोस्ट फेवरेट सन ऑफ अब्दुल मुतल्लिब। अब क्या कीजिए, तो कहती हैं कि अगर किसी फादर की, किसी पेरेंट की बियर्ड सफ़ेद ना हो, ये ऐसा मोमेंट है कि सफ़ेद हो जाएगी। तो यहाँ पे इनका जिक्र हो रहा है हज़रत अब्दुल मुतल्लिब का, कि इफ़ द फादर्स बियर्ड हैड नॉट ऑलरेडी बीन वाइट विद एज इट वुड हैव टर्न्ड वाइट एट दैट मोमेंट। लेकिन इसमें चॉइस भी नहीं है। हमने इसके बारे में बात की पिछले सेशन में कि ये ऐसा ज़माना है जहाँ वर्ड इज़ योर पासपोर्ट इन द सोसाइटी। यहाँ पे योर ऑनर इज़ एट स्टेक। इससे पीछे हटे तो बड़ा बुरा होगा, और सिर्फ आपके लिए बुरा नहीं होगा, आपके ख़ानदान, आपके क्लान, सब के लिए ये एक हाईली कॉम्पिटिटिव एटमॉस्फेयर है। बनु हाशिम कभी मुंह नहीं उठा पाएगा। ये बाद में एक ये राइवलरी आपको दिखेगी, हाउ इट वुड कम इन द मिडल ऑफ द प्रोफेटिक मिशन एज वेल। बनु उमैया वुड आर्ग्यू कि had the Banu Hashims claimed something else, it was okay। कि वो कहते हम अमीर हैं तो कोई बात नहीं है, अमीर हैं, हम भी हो सकते हैं आगे अमीर। ये बोलते हम लीडर हैं, कोई बात नहीं, हम भी आगे लीडर बन सकते थे। कुछ भी ये क्लेम करते, हम उस क्लेम को शायद कभी ना कभी इक्वल कर लेते। लेकिन ये क्लेम टू प्रॉफिटहुड जो है बनु हाशिम की, इसके साथ हम कभी इसको हम इक्वल नहीं कर सकते, या इसको सरपास हम नहीं कर सकते। ये बनु उमैया आर्ग्यू कर रहे हैं, आगे पता चलेगा कि had he claimed something else we would have equaled। I am a scientist, तो we would have equaled that। हम मेहनत करते, हम भी इक्वल करते। Had he claimed I am a merchant, okay, I have 10 sons, okay, we would also get them someday inshallah। But this is not such a claim, this is a taller claim which cannot be surpassed, so we are not going to accept his prophethood। This was one of the arguments of Banu Umayya। तो आप देखते हैं अनानियत कैसे बीच में आती है मामलात में, एंड लीनिएज अनानियत के जो डिफरेंट एस्पेक्ट्स है उसमें से एक सेंट्रल एस्पेक्ट है लीनिएज। लीनिएज की वजह से जो अनानियत है वो बहुत बड़ी अनानियत में से एक है, जिस पे हुजूर ने बड़ा हमको, जिसको तंबे कहते हैं ना, डराया है उससे कि ये दिस इज़ एन ऑब्नॉक्शियस थिंग, दिस इज़ ए रोडवे टू हेल। There are many people who fall in this trap of feeling that they are from a particular clan, from a particular tribe, while there is no contribution from them to be a part of such a tribe, such a clan, such a nation। जैसे वही मुसलमानों का एक अपना घमंड देखो हमने ये किया, हमने वो किया। तुमने कुछ नहीं किया सर, आपने कुछ नहीं किया। आप बैठे रहे, शांत हो जाएं। आपने नहीं, आपके एंसेस्टर्स थे, आपके साथ एक्सीडेंट हुआ, आप यहाँ पैदा हुए। ऐसे ये तमाम दुनिया में दे फील प्राउड अबाउट इट, एंड पार्ट ऑफ प्राइड इज लुकिंग डाउन अपॉन अदर्स एज समथिंग inferior. It accompanies pride. And for the proud, the destination is hell. God doesn't like pride at all. At all. Anything can be forgiven except pride. You might think, but this is not what the Quran says. Quran says anything would be forgiven except kufr. But once you understand the nitty-gritties of kufr, what is kufr proper, then you would understand it is akin to kibr. It's akin to ego. It's akin to arrogance. Arrogance and kufr, same. Congruent triangles. Arrogance and kufr. In fact, kufr cannot be without arrogance. It is not possible. Kufr, one of the meanings is concealing, to conceal something. So concealing necessitates you know that you are concealing. You cannot not know that you are concealing something. Conceal करना, छुपाना। छुपाना necessitate कर रहा है कि आपको मालूम है आप कुछ छुपा रहे हैं। So why would you do that when you know and then you hide it? So why would you? क्यों करेंगे आप ऐसा? So part of it would be this reason, arrogance. यही different forms लेती है। जैसे सजदा, आप सजदा करते हैं, सजदे को खींच दिया, क्यों? क्योंकि शाकिर देख रहा है, रहीन को इम्प्रेस करना है। फरहान देख रहा है तो दुआ आज लंबी पढ़ लेते हैं, ठीक। आयतुल कुर्सी पढ़ रहे हैं तो थोड़ा जोर से पढ़ते हैं ताकि ताहा सुन ले, ठीक। और रात फतेह पढ़ रहे हैं, उसको थोड़ा सा तेज पढ़ ले बाकी सब से, ताकि अरसलान को पता चले कि इनको याद है ये। ऐसा बड़े सारे लोगों के साथ होता है। ये क्यों होता है? ये क्यों करेगा कोई? Why would anyone want to do that? Because he or she ascribes this great quality to his own self, while it has to be ascribed to God. So why would you ascribe it to your own self? I am its creator. Now this is arrogance. But notice it's also kufr, because God is its creator. So that's one simple way of showing that arrogance and kufr are one and the same thing. They're not different at all. So one of the forms it takes is lineage pe arrogance. The opposite of it is also another form of arrogance and therefore another form of kufr. That is doing injustice to lineage, placing it lower than where it should be, which also comes from arrogance. The first form of arrogance wishes to place oneself above others. The other tries to place one that is above below. They are, अगर आप फिजिक्स का थोड़ा इल्म रखते हैं, ये दोनों एक ही चीज़ है। Body A is moving towards east with speed 10 kilometers per hour. We can say it is moving towards west with minus 10 kilometers per hour speed. One and the same result would come if you solve equations of motion. ईस्ट की तरफ जा रही है 10 किलोमीटर की स्पीड से, वेस्ट की तरफ जा रही है माइनस 10 किलोमीटर की स्पीड से, सेम रिजल्ट। ऐसे ही ये दोनों चीज़ें सेम है। इसको हॉर्स शू थ्योरी कहते हैं कि टू एक्सट्रीम्स आर ऑलमोस्ट सो क्लोज टू ईच अदर दैट दे बिकम वन। तो लीनिएज पे जो प्राउड करते हैं और लीनिएज को जो डिग्रेड करते हैं, ये दोनों एक्सट्रीम्स हैं और हमारे माशरे में दोनों मिलते हैं। जैसे हमारे माशरे में सैयद्स एंड पीर एंड रिच, all of these peoples from cities, they look down upon others. The Sayyids would look down upon others. Many of them would do it. कि ये नीचे लोग हैं, पढ़े लिखे अनपढ़ पे, कि ये नीच किस्म के लोग हैं, नीचे लोग हैं। एक जेंडर दूसरे जेंडर पे कि ये कमज़ोर लोग हैं। शहर के गांव पे कि ये गवार लोग हैं। अमीर गरीब पे। तो ये सारे सोचते नहीं है ऐसे वक्त पे कि हमें जो शर्फ हासिल हुआ है, इन सब में शर्फ है कुछ ना कुछ। शहर, अमीरी, ऐसे ही सैयद, ये सारे ये शर्फ हैं कुछ जो आपको हासिल हुए हैं। लेकिन ये शर्फ आपको अल्लाह ताला ने दिए हैं, इसमें प्राउड फील करने की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है, दूसरे लोगों को लुक डाउन अपॉन करने की ज़रूरत नहीं। लेकिन जिस सोसाइटी में एग्जिस्ट करता है एंड इट कम्स फ्रॉम दिस क्लान एंड ट्राइब, ये वाली फीलिंग। और इसका ऑपोजिट, इस चीज़ को तस्लीम ना करना कि किसी के पास शर्फ है। क्योंकि अल्लाह ताला फरमाते हैं पैगंबरों के मामले में भी कि हमने किसी को किसी से कोई चीज़ ज़्यादा दी, लेकिन वहीं पे उसूल भी बयान किया कि तुम डिफ्रेंशिएट नहीं करोगे, गुड पैगंबर बैड पैगंबर, ये नहीं करोगे तुम। हमने शर्फ दिया है, किसी से हमने बात की ना, ऐसा हुआ, किसी को हमने यहीं जन्नत में खुद यहीं बुलाया कि आ जाओ यहाँ देखो। किसी को हमने विदाउट फादर पैदा किया, किसी को विदाउट फादर एंड मदर पैदा किया। तो दोनों तरीके के कुफ्र ऐसे इवेंट में हो सकते हैं। एक जो इसको डिनाई करेगा, वो क्या डिनाई करेगा, कहेगा ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, कोई फादर के बिना नहीं हुआ, वो इस कुफ्र में चला जाएगा, नाउज़ुबिल्लाह। और दूसरा जो इसकी वजह से कहेगा कि यही सबसे अफजल पैगंबर है, मैं इन्हीं की इबादत करूंगा, खुदा की नहीं करूंगा, देखो ना विदाउट फादर यही मेरे खुदा है, ये दूसरा कुफ्र होगा। तो लीनिएजेस के मामले में भी ऐसा होता है। अमीरी एक शर्फ है जो अल्लाह ताला देते हैं, हम दुआ करते हैं अमीर होने की। अल्लाह ताला का एक सिफत है ये अमीरी। अल्लाह ताला की जो सिफ़ात है, अस्माउल हुस्ना है, अगर आपको ध्यान हो, अमीर बनाने वाला और अमीर, ये दोनों टाइटल्स हैं अल्लाह ताला के। गरीब नहीं है अल्लाह ताला का टाइटल। तो वी वांट टू बी अमीर। इनफैक्ट द प्रॉफिट वुड से सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम कि ओ गॉड, मुझे गरीबी और कुफ्र से बचाओ, मुझे गरीबी और कुफ्र से बचाओ, मुझे गरीबी और कुफ्र से बचाओ। तो सहाबा ने पूछा एक बार कि आप ये एक ही लाइन में गरीबी और कुफ्र कहते हैं, मतलब व्हाट्स द रिलेशन आर, मतलब एक ही लाइन में गरीबी और कुफ्र। तो इट्स लाइक सेइंग कि मुझे एक चिकन बिरयानी और एक गाड़ी दे दो, दोनों का रिलेशन ही नहीं है। कोई चिकन बिरयानी खाते हैं, गाड़ी में सफ़र करते हैं, ऐसी बात हो गई है। तो he was asked this and the prophet responded, yes, there is a relation, गरीबी is almost कुफ्र। वाह। तो इस चीज़ को रिकग्नाइज ना करना है क्योंकि ये कुफ्र की तरफ ले जाता है, ऐसा भी होता है। तो लीनिएज के मामले में भी ऐसा ही है, दोनों साइड, इन दोनों एक्सट्रीम्स से बचे। लेट यू नॉट बी फोर्स्ड टू डू इनजस्टिस टू वेयर यू कैन डू जस्टिस, विच इज गिविंग पीपल देयर ड्यू। Women have respect because they are women. Khalas. Not giving them respect, arrogance. But to think of women as an object of worship, once again the same thing. Same men के साथ. Their valor, their courage, and their habit of giving and taking care of the family needs to be admired, loud, respected. But for men to think because of that कि we, हम हैं, हम तोप हैं, हम कुछ हैं, again avoid ऐसी lineages, the prophetic lineage that continues। एक शर्फ है जो मुझे और शाकिर को नहीं हासिल हुआ, लेकिन हमें ये शर्फ हासिल हुआ कि हम इस lineage को recognize करते हैं, and we love them for their relation with the Prophet and nothing else. तो ये दोनों extremes को avoid करना है, and it's in the center of all of this is arrogance, and you don't want to be arrogant. So this thing, the honor, it's often ascribed in traditional societies with tribe. A man going against his clan and tribe, बड़ा मसला हो जाएगा. So we talked about Banu Umayyah stopping from accepting Islam, and one of the reasons is arrogance and tribal allegiance. And let not your allegiance to any tribe force you to do injustice to other people. This is what God has asked us to do in Quran. Okay, stand firmly for justice, even as witnesses against your own self. That's what we are asked to do. Speak the truth. So now here is a father who has to sacrifice a son. The vow has been made. The decision has been made. It's going to be Abdullah, the favorite son. बाकी बच्चे भी देख रहे हैं कि is he seriously going to kill our brother? They're shocked, amazed. The sons, they cannot question their father. You don't do that. That's a very modern phenomenon. Traditionally, we would never do that, but हमारे era में it's normal. Every one of us falls for it. So they are not to question their father, and they are also part of the same edifice. They know what it means to have taken a vow. They know what it means in this society. If he doesn't go ahead with sacrificing his son, we would never be able to live a life here in Mecca, at least. And then the thing would spread. Then the Arabs had a custom. What would they do is, they would write poetries about such things. And it would remain forever. Even today it would have been sung. And then they would have festivals. And in the festivals they would fight inter-clan, inter-tribal poetry competitions they had. The hanging poems came out of those festivals. कहीं पे आएगा आगे जिक्र तो उसको देख लेंगे. What are these hanging poems? This is the best of Arabic literature apart from Quran. कुरान के बाहर का सबसे अच्छा Arabic literature is the hanging poems. So that's where they would come from, these competitions. And in those competitions, what would they do? They would compete against each other, and in that poetry such things would be sung. तो दूसरे अपने opponent को नीचे दिखाने के लिए they would do that. And then they would also compose ballads and other things about wars and how injustice was done. और किसी को किसी ने मारा तो they would recite poetry about it so that generations would know what had happened. And that's why the Arab knowledge of genealogies and history was amazing. They knew a lot about their own past. Not many civilizations have so much information about lineage as Arabs have. कौन tribe कहाँ से आया, everything. Because they would have a very strong oral tradition. Now, they might hope for some sudden last minute stay order from Hubal. But was there anything to come? Of course not. And then comes the moment. Abdul Muttalib orders Abdullah down on his knees in front of him, and he takes a knife in his hand. Now the time has come. So what is to be done? Somehow a thought comes up. Okay, surely we could have misinterpreted what Hubal was saying. ऐसा हो सकता है ना? It might have been subtler than what we thought. We think that it has ordered us to sacrifice Abdullah, but could be that it is saying something else. Why not consult an expert in the matter, a kahin? It's like an oracle. Priest like seers, जो आपको इन चीज़ों के explanations देंगे, commentary kind of a thing, कि what does it mean, symbols और signs के meanings आपको बताएंगे. तो कंसल्ट करने में क्या जा रहा है? And then we have great kahins available. तो कहीन वुड फाइनली अटेस्ट, फिर कर लेंगे, जल्दी क्या है, अभी नहीं तो बाद में कर लेंगे, तो कंसल्ट करने में हर्ज क्या है? हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल ऐसे ही करेंगे. तो इन कहीन में एक थी जो बहुत मशहूर थी. शी वॉज दी कहीना, कि इतनी मशहूर थी कि उनको कहीना नाम से ही जाना जाता था. बट शी डिड नॉट लिव इन मक्का. She lived in an oasis called Yasrib. यसरिब में रहती थी वो. ये मक्का के 200 मील नॉर्थ में है. तो इस ज़माने में 200 मील दूर होना मतलब फॉर ऑल प्रैक्टिकल पर्पसेस इट्स अनदर कंट्री. एंड दैट ऑल्सो मीन्स समथिंग इन दिस डिस्कशन ऑफ आवर्स, विच इज़ कि ये इतना दूर है कि ये एक अलग कौम ही है, और ये अलग कौम ही है इसका मतलब इनका कोई इसमें स्टेक नहीं है. ये फॉर या अगेंस्ट नहीं है बाइस्ड. हमको एक सही ऑब्जेक्टिव आंसर मिलेगा कि क्या करना चाहिए. एंड देन द बेस्ट इन द सिटी. ये तो सबसे बेस्ट है, दी कहीं ना है, और ऑब्जेक्टिव भी मिलेगा आंसर. The spirits that spoke through her were those of another people, and therefore not Quraysh, not another. कि हमें इसमें कोई दिखेगा हैंकी पैंकी कि इसके खुद के, इसको बोलते हैं कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट. इसके कोई कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, इसका कुछ नहीं जाएगा. अब्दुल्ला अगर जाते भी हैं तो, या अगर रहते भी हैं तो कोई नहीं जाएगा. तो गुड चॉइस. इट स्पीक्स ऑफ द स्पिरिट्स ऑफ खजराज. खजराज ये एक अनदर, इट्स अनदर ट्राइब. ये मदीना में रहता था, यथरिब में. तो इनसे भी मुलाकात होगी हमारी आगे जाके. खजराज ट्राइब से बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है इस्लामिक हिस्ट्री में ये ट्राइब. अभी तो पासिंग रेफरेंस है. गुड ऑथर्स डू दिस. नोट वन थिंग अबाउट गुड ऑथर्स, यू नो व्हेन यू रीड अ बुक एंड आफ्टर once you finish it you are like wowed. Many people think that these wows are entirely subjective. There is no point in discussing what could wow people, but that's not true. People can discuss. When we read great literature, for example, we do find things which are parallel. It's very difficult to get at the center of beauty because the things or the tools or the instruments that help us to measure it, we are yet to decipher them. But it doesn't mean that we don't know what beauty is, or we cannot recognize one when it is. So one of the things about great writers of fiction, biographies and histories are written like fiction. I've explained this to you before. They are akin to fiction. Fiction और इनका जॉनर सेम होता है. फ़र्क बस इतना होता है कि इसका जो कंटेंट होता है वो हिस्ट्री से लिया होता है और फिक्शन का अपने माइंड से, लेकिन लिखने का तरीका सेम होता है. सो वन ऑफ द ग्रेट थिंग्स अबाउट राइटर्स इज व्हेन यू आर वाउड एट द एंड ऑफ इट. सो देयर आर फ्यू थिंग्स दे हैव डन. वन ऑफ देम इज इमेजरी फॉर एग्जांपल, देन इज सस्पेंस. ये सारी चीज़ें हैं. मेटाफर का यूज़, ये सारी चीज़ें. एंड वन ऑफ द थिंग्स दे डू इज दे ड्रॉप हिंट्स ऑफ व्हाट इज गोइंग टू कम. जब आप खजराज के बारे में पढ़ेंगे, ये ऑलरेडी इंट्रोड्यूस टर्म है आपके साथ आगे. सो दिस इज ऑल्सो वन ऑफ द थिंग्स दे डू. किसी चीज़ का जिक्र होगा और वो बाद में पॉप अप होगा कहानी में. तो ये जो काहिना थी ये तो खजराज की थी, तो कोई स्टेक भी नहीं है। एंड देन स्प्रिट्स की बात है, स्प्रिट ही समझे। अब किसी और इंसान से पूछते तो मसला होता। तो ओनली स्प्रिट्स अंडरस्टैंड अनदर। तो इनका जो स्प्रिट है जिसके काहिना ये हैं, तो यही कहेंगे कि हुबल एक्चुअली कहना क्या चाह रहा था। हो सकता है कि इट डिड नॉट मीन टू किल Abdullah. Of course it did not. You see how God saved Hazrat Ishmael. God does not want humans to be killed. No, we have to consult a kahina कि मैंने तो वो तो झुका भी, चाकू भी था हाथ में, लेकिन रोका ही नहीं खुदा ने। ऐसा नहीं होगा। तो जो बाकी बेटे थे उन्होंने अब्दुल मुत्तलिब से कहा वी शुड कंसल्ट a kahina. And if she says कि sacrifice Abdullah, this is what Hubal meant, then we would do that. But if she commands something that would offer us relief, then we would be justified to accepting it. Why not? तो सबसे फास्टेस्ट कैमल्स जमा किए गए and they are rushing to Medina, and there they are in 7 days. They bear gifts for the kahina. They bear gifts for the spirits. This is one of the etiquettes of Arabs, and this is one of the etiquettes of almost all traditional societies. So when people visit another people, they take something with them. This is also one of the things that is lost upon modern people. Visiting people without any courtesy, respect, regard for the other. But here you see, even in the Dawr Jahiliya, they would take these gifts, etc. And they are watching anxiously. And her eyes are fluttering. And she goes into her trance. And she is trying to communicate with her God. And she is trembling, shuddered with the force of the invisible encounter of which no one had clue but her what's happening. She whispers. These whispers are incomprehensible for anyone. There are deep moans that are escaping her lips, and none of it that we understand. And then there is a long and tense silence. And then she is still. She looks at us, piercing her eyes, scans the room, looks into the eyes of Abdul Muttalib. Her eyes open, and she slowly regains the focus of this world in which she is back now. And then finally the last of the things that should have arrived arrives, her speech. But there is no wisdom to be spoken. There is no great poetry coming. There is no twist in the tale. There is no puzzle to be solved. There is a very simple question. How much do you pay as blood money? How much do you pay as a compensation of taking a man's life? अगर किसी की जान तुम ले लो तो उसके बदले में कितना लेते हो तुम? 10 camels. 10 camels. And she nods her head as if उनको मालूम था कि हाँ 10 ही लेते हैं. वापस जाओ अपने मुल्क, वापस जाओ. और जो ये बच्चा है, the young man, take him out. Keep him on one side and keep 10 camels on another. And cast your arrows new. फिर से इसको करो और हुबल से पूछो कि 10 कैमल्स या अब्दुल्ला. लेकिन काहिना अगर फिर से अब्दुल्ला हुआ तो और 10 कैमल रखो दूसरी साइड. लेकिन अगर फिर से अब्दुल्ला हुआ तो और 10 कैमल रखो. तब तक रखते रहो जब तक उस साइड ना आए और उतने कैमल सैक्रिफाइस करो. he would have paid Abdullah's price. Keep adding camels in this manner until your God is satisfied and accepts the camels in lieu of the young man. They are happy. Abdul Muttalib's heart finally at peace. They can take a deep sigh. The brothers are happy. Abdullah is at peace now. Camel finally can be given out. Not a big deal. The Arabs are proud. The Hashims are proud. It's not a big deal for them to save Abdullah. To save Abdullah, even the Umayyads would have come in. Banu Umayyah would have come. We would also participate in it. We'll also give you 10 camels. So be it. The Arabs are a very proud people. So they do just that, and they add 10 camels with each throw of arrow against Abdullah. But the thing is, every time they did, it would fall on Abdullah again and again. Till 100 camels had been offered, and that is an extraordinary number. 100 camels. 100 camels. That's a lot. That's a modern economy. That's a developed economy आजकल के ज़माने में 100 camels. That's a lot. You know, a camel of a decent size, not big, not small, cost is around 1 lakh in India. 1 lakh rupees. 10 camels, 10 lakh. 100 camels, 1 crore. That's a huge number of camels that has to be sacrificed. हंगामा है पूरे शहर में. लेकिन खबर ये नहीं है कि 100 कैमल्स. खबर ये है कि Abdullah's life is worth 10 lives. Every man's life is worth 10 camels. Abdullah's life is worth 100 camels. Abdullah's worth is of those of 10 people. That evening Abdul Muttalib celebrated. He had no need of a Sigmund Freud to remind him of the deep connection between Eros and Thanatos, the life force and the death force. And he moved instantly to mark his favorite son's new lease on life. And within hours of the camels being slaughtered, Abdullah was married. The father and the mother of our Prophet, they are married. Abdullah and Hazrat Amina. They are married. Some people would swear that there was a blaze of white light on Abdullah's forehead that day. जिस दिन उनकी शादी थी, उनका चेहरा चमक रहा था. And some people would say, in the morning, there was no light on his face. So Leslie Hazelton says, blaze of light or not, जो भी था, Prophet Muhammad was conceived either that night or 1 or 2 after that. Why? Because in 3 days Abdullah would leave for Damascus and then never see Amina again. In 3 days, he would leave for Damascus. It's in Syria. It's north of Mecca, further north of Medina, further north of Jerusalem. That's your Damascus. And when he would return from Damascus, he would pause in Medina and he would not turn back. How ironic that he would die near the Kahina who had saved him. None would comment on the irony of life. But why would they? ऐसा करेगा भी क्यों कोई comment? Accident, infection, a scorpion sting, a snake bite, disease, infection. These were much more common on such journeys, which would take months, if not years. So why would anyone even bother about a man's death? That's what happens to men. They die. Nobody would record why he died, because it's a normal thing to happen. So we don't know what killed Abdullah. It's not recorded. All we know that he was buried in an unmarked grave. He leaves his bride a widow and his only child an orphan in the womb of his mother. Leslie Hazelton says, but like so many stories of the births of heroes, this one cuts two ways. ऐसा ही होता है जब हम हीरोज की बर्थ के बारे में पढ़ते हैं. और जो लेजेंड्स हैं उनका जो लॉजिक है, इट्स रेयरली काइंड, इट्स नेवर काइंड टू पीपल. That means even if it's not history, it is concocted, even then it is not fair, it is not kind. So even though the legend gives Prophet Muhammad a noble status, yet it at the same time deprives him of it. It places him in Quraysh. It deprives him of his father. It says he was born in the center of Mecca. It says he was the child of Ishmael and Ibrahim. It says he had deep ties through his father and grandfather to the central events of all Arabia. Yet in the same token, it throws him into the margins of the society, an orphan. An orphan. You know what's an orphan? What's an orphan? These are people who are thrown into the margins of society, such that God asks us and says in Quran again and again, be kind to the orphan. In the same breath where we are asked to take care of the ill, the needy, the highway farer, the poor, and the orphan. The orphan is placed there with the poor, with the ill, with the needy. That's what an orphan is. He is poor. He is needy. He is ill. So on one side, it places the Prophet high above everything else, the noblest of all. And on the other side, it places him at the lowest of the low. Legends are never kind to people. On the one end, it makes his birth miraculous. Yet, it singles out what may well be the central existential aspect of his life, that he is an orphan. ये एक ऐसी सोसाइटी है जहाँ पे फादर, फादर कश्मीरी में हम कहते हैं वो बने मॉयलस, but he cannot say this. When we hold our father's finger and we move down the street and then we see there's a dog who's barking, what do? We hide behind our father. There is no one to hide behind here. There is no one. The mothers don't leave in the evening. The fathers move around. It's dangerous out there. And then we look at the stars and we point out and we ask our father, what is that? Abbu, wo kya hai? And then father responds, this is moon, this is star, this is a mountain, this is a cloud. There's no one here. In a society that venerates fathers, he is born without one. And it's not a world which is very kind to orphans. It's not kind to widows as well. He is born to a widow and an orphan. To be born without a father is to be born without a name. I know a person who would cry often. And whenever he was asked of his lineage, so he would be asked, okay, your relatives, they write Sayyid so and so, Sayyid so and so, Sayyid so and so. Why don't you write Sayyid so and so? And every time he would cry. I'm not telling you a story which is concocted. I know the person. First hand information I'm telling you. He would cry every time he was asked this question. And when asked why he was crying, he would say, I was born without a father. I don't know who I am. Who would write, he would say, in those times, who would write my name on the papers? The society was never kind and just. मेरा भी नाम कहीं पे दर्ज होता. Without papers, without anything. He says, I don't know where I have come from. And he would cry every time. A fatherless child is born without inheritance. There is no hope for him. There are no takers for him. A son could never inherit in such a situation, because when would you inherit? You would inherit when you were mature. But if your father had died before that, the possessions would be taken over by someone else. It's not a society which is very just. It's not a society which is very kind. You're an orphan. You have to fend for yourself. The next adult male relative would get all of it, and he would assume the responsibility of the new family. But one has to appreciate another aspect of such division of wealth. In tribal societies, there isn't a stronger conception of personal wealth. So even if it passed on to the eldest adult male, it would still mean that it was everyone's. So there was no such thing as personal wealth in tribal societies. It's a very interesting discussion on what makes personal property. It's amazing. कभी मौका मिला तो हम philosophy में इसको पढ़ेंगे और theories different personal property की. What makes personal property personal? कोई चीज़ हमारी कैसे हो जाती है? So, and it's not as simple as you think. You might think मैंने इसके लिए पे किया तो ये मेरी हो गई, लेकिन आपने जिसको पे किया उसकी कैसे हुई थी? नहीं, उसने किसी से खरीदी थी तो उसकी कैसे हुई थी? So we would end up at a point where there is the object and the man and they are not related. It's interesting. It's very interesting. Theories of personal property and what can be made a personal property and what cannot. Same thing can be applied to humans, for example. How an object, a laptop, मेरा property है, why can't a human become? Now that's the philosophy behind slavery. So what's the difference between a human and an object then? So that one becomes private property, another cannot. And then when that distinction is made, that distinction might apply to certain objects and objects. Then which objects can be made private property, which cannot? Now that's where the roots of Marxism lie. That you cannot make means of production a private property. Wow, amazing. So it's a wonderful topic in itself. करेंगे किसी दिन इंशाल्लाह. But here there is no such thing as personal property. Only the good of the tribe is to be taken care of. No member of the tribe would be abandoned. Everyone would be cared for. The silver lining that there is. But was our Mecca like that? If it was like that, why would Quran again and again say, help the needy, help the poor, take care of the orphan, do not usurp his wealth, only take care of it and give it back to him when he matures. This is what Quran says when you deal with orphans, what you do. So what had happened to our Mecca? What had happened to the place of Ishmael? wealth. Wealth had come in and values had gone out. Wow, what a sad story this world is. What a sad story this world is. All of us read history to know what happens when something else happens and how to stop it. What is history? History is a lesson in lessons. How not to do a thing, how to do a thing. What should be your values? What do you want to achieve? What do we want? Why do we want to know about Hitler? We want to know about him so that we don't create one. That's why we want to study him. We want to understand how he pulled off probably the biggest, single most tragedy the world has seen. That single man did it. But he couldn't have done it alone. There must have been great machinery behind it, which he must have created or used or helped himself with. Auschwitz does not come out of thin air. You have to make one. So we have to understand this person so that we don't fall into that trap where we kill innocent people. We don't want to do that. That's why we want to study him. We want to study what led to Great Depression. Why? Because we don't want to get into Great Depression. We have to read the lives of whalers so that we become people of whaler. We see what is common between them. That's how science works, right? We study the pattern, the customs of nature. History is a story of customs. We want to study the customs of failure and of success, and what each kind of failure and success looks like. But what had happened to our Mecca? Wealth. Wealth came in and it kicked all the values they had. They were wealthy now because of caravan trade. They were wealthy now because of pilgrimage to Mecca, to the Haram, to the Kaaba sanctuary. The old values had seriously been eroded. These are the people who were killing their daughters. She would ask them in the hereafter, what was I killed for? She would not leave them. And when this wealth started pouring in, it did what it does the best. It became concentrated in a few hands. Every man for himself. Every child for himself. Every orphan child for himself. No matter where you are born, you are no one's burden. A child's gender might offer him some protection. If it was a female, the gods would have turned. The decision would have been made. Kill her. We cannot provide for her. She would bring us shame. She is a liability to carry. We don't want to keep women around. They would have left her in the desert, an offering to the gods, or just killed by chronic neglect. Just leave her as she is. Men was the currency of the era, and female infanticide was a norm. Quran talks about it. Talks about it directly, and it condemns it. But it was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yet an orphan, a nobody in this society, thrown into the corners by fate. And this destiny seemed only to be confirmed by the fact that for the first 5 years of his life, he would be raised by what the Quraysh elite regarded as another kind of a nobody. Who would raise him? A Baddu foster mother, far from Mecca, far from what was a civilized society. And even there he would be thrown into the margins. The foster motherhood no one would take. She was going to take the master of universe. The irony of fate is such. The greatest and the lowest merged in one. The Khair-e-Khalq is born an orphan. The best of civilization would be fostered by a Bedouin. What happens after that, we'll see in the next session, inshallah.